Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Srimad Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 2, text 56. Translation: one who is not disturbed in mind even amidst the threefold miseries or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. Purport: the word muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a muni differs from other munis, he cannot be called a muni in the strict sense of the term. Nacha savrishya yasya matang nabhinnam, from Mahabharata. But a sthita dhir muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary muni. The sthita dhir muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He is called Prashanta Nishesha Manoratantara, from Stotra Ratna, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. He is called a muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna-conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds, and he sees that his miseries by the grace of the Lord are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna-conscious person is always steady in his determination. First, I'd like to express my happiness in seeing so many happy devotees. I was just this morning reading an article from a Krishna-conscious magazine from 91 years ago. And the article was called Ananda, which means happiness. So, Krishna consciousness is full of Ananda, happiness. Of course, we have philosophy also. We've come here to discuss Bhagavad-gita philosophy. But this is not dry, boring philosophy. This is the philosophy that reveals Krishna, who is the supreme absolute truth and the reservoir of pleasure. And the conclusion of this philosophy is singing and dancing in glorification of Krishna. And of course, there's always Krishna's mercy in the form of sanctified foodstuffs, Krishna prasadam. Sometimes Krishna consciousness is called the kitchen religion. So there's a lot of cooking, a lot of eating also. So we have so many activities: philosophy, singing, dancing, music, cooking. Everything is meant for the pleasure of and glorification of Krishna. We are not here to be philosophers per se. Do you know what per se means? It means not exactly like that. It's our intrinsic aim or our ultimate aim is not simply to be philosophers, nor musicians, nor cooks or gourmets, but to be devotees of Krishna. In Bhagavad-gita, Lord Krishna is revealing the path by which we can be devotees of Krishna. There are certain requirements to be a devotee of Krishna. As is stated in the Bible, I believe it's spoken by Lord Jesus, one cannot love God and love mammon. Mammon is an archaic word which means material pleasure. So this verse that we're discussing today gives that idea. And this concept of being free from material attachment, or this understanding, it seems to be almost lost in the Christian tradition. It was there previously. But it's an obvious point that we cannot be attached to the material world and be attached to the spiritual world. Nor, as Krishna indicates in the verse that we just read, if one has material attachment, fear and anger, it's not possible to have a steady mind. So this being free from material attachment, fear and anger is a prerequisite for being a devotee of Krishna. Or at least the desire has to be there to be free from attachment, fear and anger. And by practicing Krishna consciousness, one is imbued with the mercy of Krishna, by which one by Krishna consciousness becomes free from attachment, fear and anger. Now this one line which comes in this verse comes again later in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad-gita. Vita raga bhaya krodha, freedom from attachment, fear and anger. Vita raga bhaya krodha manmaya mamupashritaha bahavo jnana tapasa putamad bhavamagataha. Lord Krishna states that being freed from attachment, fear and anger, which number verse is it? Many persons in the past became purified and being attached to me, many persons in the past became purified and by knowledge and detachment, and thus they came to me. Now, as long as we're in the material world, attachment, fear and anger, they pervade our lives. We have unlimited material attachments. Srila Prabhupada sometimes pointed out that if we take a worm in stool away from the stool, he will feel offended and go back to the stool. He'll crawl back to the stool. Kirmana, yeah. It's Sanskrit again. It's so many words. You know that? Kira means creamy. Yes, the word for worm, the type of worm that goes in stool. Srila Prabhupada often used to use this graphic example of the worm in stool, which you can probably only imagine in this country. You don't see many worms in stool because you pass stool and then you flush it all away. But just to give an impromptu biology class here, there are 2 basic kinds of worms in stool. One is the type that lives in the intestine and is passed out sometimes with the stool. The most common ones of these are very small. Some are very long. They can be several, like more than a meter long. And another type that you won't see is when you pass stool in the field and then the flies come and they lay their eggs and then little maggots come and live happily in the stool. Kita, that's another, yeah. Kita means. You've seen in India, yeah. In Lithuania also. Yeah, actually I've seen in Russia sometimes they have these outside toilets still. So we're here to discuss the highest philosophy of this supremely beautiful transcendental person, Krishna. So why are we talking about worms in stool? Well, because we are worms in stool. The same attachment we have to the material world is the same attachment that the worms have to the stool. And although that position may seem very horrible to us, it's the same attachment that we have to our putra dara grihadishu, this mentioned in Bhagavad-gita, attachment to children, wife, home, family and the rest. So, of course, the position of the worm in stool appears most abominable. And it therefore serves as a good contrast between that of the pure devotee living with Krishna in the spiritual world. Apart from the worm being in the stool, when the worm is in the stool, that means the stool is sitting there and it gains extra smell by sitting in the field or in the toilet. So the smell is so bad you want to vomit. just smelling it. But the worm in stool is thinking, this is wonderful. So if we're attached to this material world, then we cannot be attached to Krishna. So sometimes we often give these kind of examples to bring home the point to us, to exemplify the point that it is absolutely against our self-interest to be attached to this material world. Apart from being attached to friends, family, home, and we may also have subtle attachments. We're attached to our own ideas. Many people, they can't even hear the philosophy of Bhagavad-gita spoken by devotees because they have a block in their consciousness that they already have their own ideas and they don't want it changed. There's I don't know about here in Lithuania, but in Western Europe and USA, Australia, like that, a lot of people think that it's very bad for religions to proselytize. Proselytize means to try to convert people to your religion. Mm-hmm. They don't like people who are, come up to you on the street or knock on your door and they try to change your religious belief.
Ir jiems nepatinka žmonės, kurie stabdo jūs gatvėje, pastusena jums į duris ir mėgina pakeisti jūsų religinius įsitikinimus.
Is it like that in Lithuania also? Sometimes. They say, well, really, you can believe what you like, but don't try to proselytize. But these rascals, they're proselytizing for Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola and Mercedes-Benz and Toyota and everything in the world, but don't preach about God. Wherever you go, you're subject to big, huge billboards telling you to buy this and buy that, and no one's complaining. And they wouldn't sell anything unless they advertised it. No one would ever buy Coca-Cola unless they advertised it. Well, that's considered socially acceptable. But to propagate God consciousness is considered something it's not proper to do. So, people don't like they don't like preaching. If you like, you can explain this and that, but don't try to convert me. So they already have a built-in psychological block so that they can retain all their material attachments. So therefore, person who want to be transcendentalists, they deliberately try to get free from material attachments. And particularly the history of India is one of a renunciation. Sometimes Western scholars, they criticize Indians that they never kept any proper history.
Kartais vakariečiai kritikuoja Indus už tai, kad tie nėra sudarę tinkamos istorijos, užrašę tinkamos. Ir jie kritikuoja, kad štai Indai neturi tokios.
They didn't keep elaborate chronicles of all the different political intrigues. Well, the reason is because in Indian culture, this is who's in power and that's not considered the really important point of life. In Indian culture, traditionally, the people who have been considered most important and remembered and revered throughout the ages are the spiritual leaders. And there are dozens and hundreds of accounts of kings who left everything, or rich people who left everything to live a very renounced life for the sake of spiritual realization. The most famous of whom is Gautam Buddha, but he's just one of many, many. So it's understood that for spiritual advancement, one has to be free of material attachment. One also has to be free of fear. This is mentioned repeatedly in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That just yesterday we were reading Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavya Kirtitavyas Cha Smartavyas Chechata Bhayam. The one who wants to be free from fear, they should always hear about, remember and glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now in his purport here to the Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mamupashrita verse in the 4th chapter, Srila Prabhupada refers to the fear of spiritual personality. We are in the material existence, we become attached to different people, and we become disappointed in various relationships. Lord Buddha pointed out that attachment or desire, that is the cause of all suffering. So after having placed faith in others or hope in others and been disappointed, one may be fearful of having any relationships with anyone. And so when we are informed that the Supreme is a person, we become very afraid and think, no, I don't want any relationship with anyone. And so such persons, they become attached to an impersonal understanding of the Supreme. But this is also a block in understanding the Supreme Truth, because the Supreme Truth is a cowherd boy. He's a person, transcendental, happy, beautiful cowherd boy. But people who have been cheated in their material relationships, they cannot have faith in Krishna. They're afraid. Or one may even be angry. You may think that, you see all these religions, they're all just cheating, and you become angry at all religions. Or, you may become angry at God. We think that, I worship God, and then I got so many problems, and it's all God's fault. You blame God for all our problems. So fear within this material world is a symptom of ignorance. If we're afraid for the body, that is ignorance, because we are not the body. Of course, it's easy to say this; it's not so easy to act on that. And anger is also actually both fear and anger on the material platform, they're produced from material attachment. Because we're attached to the body, we're afraid that it may get harmed. And because we're attached to what people think about us, we're afraid that people will call us bad names or think that we're stupid. And anger is also a result of attachment. Because we become angry if someone insults us, or we may be attached to other people, and if people act in a way that may harm others, then we become angry at those who are causing harm. So attachment, fear and anger, they may work in various ways, but one cannot have a steady mind and one cannot be Krishna conscious if one has attachment, fear and anger. And even after taking to the process of Krishna consciousness, attachment, fear and anger can block our progress. There's a story of Sripad Ramanujacharya, a great Vaishnav guru. He had many sannyasi disciples, but he was very fond of and close to one grihastha couple. And some of his sannyasi disciples used to grumble about that. You see, we're very renounced, and these grihasthas, they're just attached householders with so much opulence. And why is our guru more attached to them? Why does he like them more? So it was the habit of this grihastha couple that the husband would stay out somewhat late at night with Ramanuja, and his wife would be at home. So one night Ramanuja instructed some of his sannyasi disciples that you go in the house of this grihastha couple while that woman, she's sleeping before the husband has come, and you take the jewelry from her body and bring it to me. Strange order, but Guru's order should be followed. So they went into the house while she was sleeping, but actually she wasn't sleeping. Anyway, she was lying on her side, so they took the jewels off, but they couldn't get the jewels on the underside where she was lying. And she, when they'd taken the jewelry off one side, she turned in her sleep, so it seems. And then they thought, now she's waking up, so they ran off. So this happened, and a few days later, Ramanuja arranged that while the sannyasis were out, someone would take her. I mean, they didn't have hardly any possessions, just the little cloth and their kopin, which means the cloth which they use as underwear, and a begging bowl, and that was about it. So Ramanuja arranged for someone to go in while the sannyasis were out from their ashram and steal their cloth underwear, just some strips of cloth, that's all. So when this happened, they all came in, "Hey, what's going on? Who's made this big offense? How could they dare to do such a thing?" So Ramanuja said, "Hey, you're getting really upset. It's just a few pieces of cloth. That lady I told you to steal from, in the morning her husband came to me and offered, the morning after I sent you to steal from her husband came to me and offered obeisances and apologized on behalf of his wife. That actually she wasn't asleep, but she was just lying down when the sannyasis came. And she saw they came to steal her jewelry, but she thought, well, they must have some reason for doing so. Ramanuja must have sent them. They wouldn't do it otherwise. So when they took the jewels from one side, I turned over so they could take it from the other side, but then they just left. I don't know why exactly. And I'm so sorry I couldn't offer all of the jewels. So anyway, please take them now, and I'm sorry for the offense." Through this, Ramanuja demonstrated that a grihasta can be fully renounced, and a sannyasi can be very attached even to the most worthless things that they have. Of course, nowadays sannyasis, they have all the most fancy technological equipment often, but they're not supposed to be attached. They're supposed to use it all in the service of Krishna. But the point is that even in spiritual life, one can develop mundane attachment. Someone can become attached to the position of being a temple president, the honor of being a sannyasi or a guru. You can become mundanely attached to them. These roles are accepted to facilitate our service to Krishna. But it is possible to become attached to it in a mundane way. It's also possible that one becomes attached to the material facilities offered in devotional service. I don't think this situation is there in Vilnius, but in many centers, ISKCON has big, opulent centers, and people can be attached to the facilities of living there rather than to serving Krishna. And fear can also be there. Mundane fear can be a block in our fear in relation to our lives in Krishna consciousness. For instance, again, I don't think this is a situation in Vilnius, but in some temples or devotional communities, the atmosphere is more one of fear than love. The temple president creates an atmosphere of fear, that I'm in charge here and you have to do what I say. So if we're serving with a predominant fear rather than developing spontaneous attraction to serving Krishna, then we're not going to actually develop in Krishna consciousness. Anger can also block our advancement in Krishna consciousness. Anger generated from association with devotees. Many devotees feel angry that, I was mistreated by other devotees, which in many cases may be true, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But if we become overwhelmed by anger and think that, all the devotees, they're all bad and I was mistreated, it's all actually self-centered egoism. In the purport which we just read, Srila Prabhupada writes that if one accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. Or one may be angry and think, I'm trying in Krishna consciousness and no one's appreciating it. And I tried to serve, I tried to preach and no one responded, and Krishna's not helping me. But it's all egoistic self-centeredness. And if we develop such an attitude, then our Krishna consciousness becomes blocked. Even if, objectively speaking, we have good grounds to complain that I've been mistreated by devotees, Still, even then, if we become angry, if we become overwhelmed by anger, then we can't be Krishna conscious. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Mada, Adi, Avishta, Eshabna, Chare, Kishe, Pabe, Radha, Krishna. He says, as long as we're absorbed in material desire, anger, greed, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, illusion, the Mada means the false pride, and all these other tendencies which block Krishna consciousness. Then, if we don't give up all these things, if we don't get beyond all these, then how can we attain to the service of Radha and Krishna? Radha and Krishna are dancing in Vrindavan, they're laughing and playing. You know, there's no place in Vrindavan to go up to Radha and Krishna and say, well, he mistreated me and they said this to me and I didn't get my insurance money. You don't get anywhere in the devotees of Krishna, they don't let you get anywhere near Radha and Krishna. You can remain very close to one devotee only. Her name is Maya Devi or Durga. We don't belong in Vraja Dham, we belong in Devi Dham. Now, attachment, fear and anger, as we have analyzed briefly here, they are blocks to being Krishna conscious. But there's another kind of attachment, fear and anger, which if we don't have it, we can't be Krishna conscious. We should be attached to Krishna, to his devotees, to devotional service, as we sing daily in the prayer to the Guru, Shri Guru Charane Rati Eshayu Tamagati. Attachment to the lotus feet of the Krishna conscious Guru, that is in and of itself the topmost attainment. Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha. By that, all our desires are fulfilled. That doesn't mean that if we desire to have 3 kilos of ice cream that will suddenly appear in front of us. Because the Guru is not an ice cream dispensing machine. Guru, when this is stated, it means that all our pure desires for Krishna consciousness will be fulfilled by attachment to the lotus feet of the Guru. And he teaches us how to desire. So attachment in itself is not bad. Attachment is good, but it's misplaced attachment that is block to Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness actually means attachment to Krishna. Lord Buddha, the basis of his teaching is that desire is the cause of all suffering. And of course, desire and attachment are intimately related. That practically, desire, when it becomes steady desire, that's called attachment. But that's saying that should be qualified, that material desire is the cause of all suffering. And from another perspective, lack of attachment is the cause of all suffering. Lack of attachment to Krishna causes us to be incarcerated in this material situation. And also there's one kind of fear that we should have if we are to be Krishna conscious. We should be afraid of Maya. If we think, well, I've conquered over Maya, that's a very foolish thing to say. Daivihi esha gunamahi mama maya duratyaya. Lord Krishna states that his Maya is very difficult to overcome. So we should recognize that Maya is much more powerful than we are. And that only mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite, only by surrendering to Krishna can we overcome Maya. But we should understand that constitutionally Maya is much more powerful than we are. So we should always be afraid that Maya will gobble us up, Maya Grasta, because that's her job, that's her service to Krishna, to test. She has 2 phases, the Avaranatmika and Prakshepatmika. One is the Avaranatmika, means pretty much all the jivas are covered by her illusion. And if anyone tries to come out of that covering, then she has a special mode by which she throws them back. In this way she tests to see who is actually sincere to get free from her clutches and go to Krishna. So we should be afraid that Maya will pull us back. She can only do so because we have material attachments. Those material attachments may be very deeply in the heart. We may not even recognize that we have so many material attachments in our heart. They may be very subtle. Once Srila Prabhupada was standing before deities and praying, and one disciple of his was bold enough to ask, afterwards, disciple asked Prabhupada, what were you praying? So Prabhupada said, I was praying to Krishna that I never fall into Maya. To us it seems like a joke, because it's unimaginable that Prabhupada could fall into Maya. Then a few days later, Prabhupada was speaking to some of his disciples and said that any one of you can fall into Maya, but I cannot. Then the devotee asked, but Prabhupada, a few days ago you said you were praying to Krishna not to fall into Maya, and now you said you can't fall into Maya. So how is that? So Prabhupada said, because I'm always praying to Krishna that I don't fall into Maya, therefore I cannot fall into Maya. And Prabhupada actually said once that one fault of my disciples is that they're not afraid of Maya. We think we don't have to follow Krishna consciousness very strictly, and we're already liberated. Famous last words. Famous last words. You know that there's a saying in English, famous last words. It means someone says something and they say something like, it's like the Titanic. They said it's unsinkable, and then on its first voyage it sunk. Yeah, that's the problem with different language, different culture, different understanding. So you can give that example of the Titanic. They weren't afraid. This ship cannot sink. Triumph of modern technology. So no one was afraid. The rest is history. Everyone knows. Thanks to Steven Spielberg, I think he was. I never watched the film. I'm not in Maya. I didn't go to see the movie, but I knew about that anyway. I'm not in Maya, famous last words. There was actually one of our godbrothers who was considered very advanced, and he once publicly declared that Maya cannot touch me. Shortly after that he fell down. Be afraid. And at the same time confident of Krishna's protection. But don't take it for granted. And there's also a certain kind of anger that if we don't have it, we can't be properly Krishna conscious. Should be angry for Krishna. Just like Hanuman taught Ravana a good lesson by burning his city. Now, when Ram sought the help of Sugriva and the monkeys for winning back Sita Devi, they could have advised him differently. They could have said, look Ram, why are you so attached? Well, you should just accept your fate. You're already living in the forest like a Muni, so now your wife's gone, so it's better for spiritual life. So now you can take sannyas. All this anger and attachment is not good. No, they fought. They were angry for Ram. Ram is the Supreme Lord, and his attachment to his wife, that is pure spiritual attachment. He is the supreme enjoyer, and bhakti means to assist the Lord in his enjoyment. So anyone who tries to obstruct the Supreme Lord's enjoyment, we should be angry at that. And those who deny the very personality of the Supreme Lord, like the Mayavadis, we should be angry at them. Contrary to modern ISKCON mythology, Srila Prabhupada often got angry. Srila Prabhupada is gradually being mythologized into a nice old man who always smiled at everyone. But actually Prabhupada often got angry at his disciples and others. At his disciples for their mistakes or lack of application in Krishna consciousness. At the Mayavadis for denying the supremacy of Krishna. There are many examples. You can see the film of Prabhupada speaking with Cardinal Daniello in Paris. The Catholic leader he's arguing why we should eat animals. And Prabhupada doesn't start shouting at him or anything, but you can see Prabhupada's going like this, and Prabhupada's just, he's just speaking politely, but you can see he's actually very angry with this person. So not to be angry, and just like the Mayavadis, they say, well, everything's nice, everything's good, be cool and relax. Aram, relax. So this seems to have entered our ISKCON world today also. The idea that don't get angry and don't get too excited and just take it easy and relax. We talk a lot about good relationships, with the idea that we should just smile at each other. But why did people love Prabhupada when he was, he could get very angry at them? Because the anger of someone who's angry at us to improve us, to help us to improve in bhakti, that anger is much more an expression of love than just just superficially smiling at others. So Narottam Das Thakur says, Krodha bhakta dveshi jane. We should be angry at persons who are inimical to devotees. Kama Krishna arpane. Our desires should be offered in the service of Krishna. So these are some considerations of attachment, fear and anger, how they can block devotional advancement, and how not having Krishna conscious attachment, fear and anger can block our advancement in Krishna. Attachment, fear and anger are not inherently bad, but we should understand how they should be applied in Krishna consciousness. So thank you for patiently listening. If there are any questions, you can please ask them. Do we have anyone watching through the internet? Maybe there's some questions there also. Any questions coming in from wherever anyone's watching? Any questions locally here in Vilnius, which for the edification of whoever might be watching, and outside of the Baltic area or Russia? I don't think anyone's ever heard of Vilnius. So it happens to be the capital of Lithuania, which is a country in Europe which used to be part of the USSR. You don't need to translate that into Lithuanian, but it's just giving some information for people who may. Yeah. Who's that? Don't know. Anonymous. Yeah. Okay, so they're typing in a question, is it? Before you go, don't go, some of you are leaving, don't go without prasadam. If you don't have attachment to prasadam, you can't be Krishna conscious. That's not a very difficult one to, usually it's, sometimes it's too much attachment for the wrong reasons. Or not the best reasons. We can't say that attachment to prasadam is bad. Anyway. No question. Oh yeah, okay. In Lithuania or outside? Okay, good. Yeah. Do you want to give the mic to him, and then everyone can hear, including those who are standing outside?
In the verse itself it is said that one who is not elated, then there is happiness.
Yeah, I didn't touch that in this. In this, I just was on the point of Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha. One who is not elated when there's happiness, or distressed when there are causes for distress. So what's the question?
So the question is that...
Well, by being attachment to Krishna, we overcome material attachments. So we may be, we may have cause for material happiness, just like seeing our family members after a long time. But one should not be overwhelmed by mundane emotions. If we're actually if we're Krishna conscious, then we'll think that how can my family members become Krishna conscious and interact with them in such a way that they may become attached to Krishna. Now it's interesting that it's not stated that the Stitadhi Muni, or the self-situated sage, doesn't have material sukh, but rather because he's Stitadhi, or fixed consciousness, he doesn't become carried away by this. If he suddenly gets $1 million, he doesn't think, oh, now great, now I can really enjoy myself, and then just forget all his Krishna consciousness. Or even in great difficulties, he doesn't give up his Krishna consciousness. So he may, he definitely in this world will have favorable and adverse conditions. But one is not carried away by that. One continues, one's mind is fixed that I have to serve Krishna. Just like now in Lithuania, the weather is much better than it was 6 months ago, I would presume, because it's miserably cold and snowing and dark all the time in the winter. Not that I've been here, but I heard all about it. Yeah, now it's a cause of material happiness, whereas in the winter it's a cause of material distress. So a devotee doesn't think, well, now it's the summer, I can enjoy, so let me go and lie on the beach and have a good time. And in the winter, when we're locked up indoors, then I'll chant Hare Krishna. Actually, in the summer, all the devotees, they should go to the beach and do Harinam. Indrajumna Swami does that. And in Croatia also, devotees, every summer, because that's a big tourist spot, people come to become what Suhotra Swami called stool pakoras. Stool pakora, yeah. They go to get their skin fried brown on the outside and inside their stool. So people are, instead of being miserable in Vilnius, they're miserable in Klaipeda. You see, you've seen them lying on the beach, and they're just, when the Harinam party comes, they... Yeah, any other question? All right. Yeah. Hare Krishna. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the subject of the class, but anyway. So, Hridesh literally means in the region of the heart. And, well, Srila Prabhupada explained this when he was asked about heart transplants. If the soul is in the heart, then do you get a new soul when you get a new heart? The soul is in the region of the heart, so when the soul has left the region of a certain heart, then that heart can be taken out of that now dead body and implanted in a body in which the soul is still present in the region of the heart, but the heart organ is not working properly. That's great, well done. You can remember all that. So I was just talking about Hrvatska, Croatia, did I say it? So Mahatapa Prabhu was asking that question. He's from Hrvatska, but now he's preaching to the stool pakoras of San Diego. San Diego is a place in America where people go to enjoy the beach, just for your information. Just like in San Diego, they never heard of Vilnius. Probably in Vilnius, they didn't hear of San Diego either. And what does it matter ultimately? In a short time, there'll be a big fire and all these cities will burn up. If it's not an atomic bomb, well, there's a fire that comes from the mouth of Ananta Shesh and burns the whole universe. Short time means after, a few trillion years. Quite a few trillion years. Many trillions of years. One good thing about being in Vilnius is no one's going to waste their atomic bombs on Vilnius, right? What is the proper way to renounce one's material desires? Well, the proper way is to dovetail all one's desires in the service of Krishna. If we simply try to give up desire without channeling our desire into the service of Krishna, that won't be successful. So to try to give up material desires without developing the positive desire to serve Krishna, that will always be a failure. So, if you're attached to going to the beach at Klaipėda, then go there and do Harinam. If you're attached to nice food, well, we have a good Krishna conscious alternative to Baskin, what's it called? Baskin Robbins, ice cream shop, something like that. Mahatapa must know. It's all over America. It's all over Europe too. They must have, what's it called? Baskin Robbins or something like that. There's whatever. There's McDonald's. Devotees not interested in McDonald's, but they are interested in Baskin Robbins. It's an ice cream shop. They have that in Finland, right? 51 varieties or something like that. Something like that. Our temples, actually throughout the world, among vegetarians especially, the Krishna Prasadam is famous, the best vegetarian food. Of course, Krishna Prasad is a lot more than just vegetarian. It's very difficult to overcome the desire for nice food. Krishna Bharadharmai Karibare Jibajoy Svaprasadana Dilobai. Krishna is very merciful, and to help us conquer the voracious tongue, he has given us Krishna Prasadam. So most people, they also desire to have a nice family, so you can have that in Krishna consciousness, if you're lucky. Yeah, anything else? Yeah.
Sarah is asking, sometimes we see that still after practicing spiritual life, our material attachments are still very strong. How we can not to be discouraged to continue our devotional service? Vedasara klausia, kartais mes matome, kad ir po ilgos dvasinės praktikos mūsų materialūs prisirišimai vis dar yra labai stiprus. Kaip mes galime nenusivilti savo pastangomis tęsti atsidavimo tarnystę?
Is that Vedasara from Croatia? Can ask him. He must have heard that. Or Vedasara from Mayapur, who's now in America. There's 2 Vedasaras I know. Is Vedasara from Croatia? Well, this is quite a big topic. I plan on speaking on it in some detail in Croatia. So see you there in a few weeks, Krishna willing. So don't become discouraged in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Keep on going.
Noriu paklausti apie Mają, kadangi Maharažas šiandien kalbėjo. Ir klausimas toks, ar galima būti daugiau, giliau Majai, arba mažiau Majai? Jeigu taip, tada koks yra kriterijus, kuris rodytų šitą dalyką? Ar įmanoma tik tais būti arba Maja, arba joje nebūti?
The question is in regards being in the Maya level. Is it possible to be more in Maya or less in Maya, or is it just a question to be in Maya or not in Maya? And what is the criteria of how to understand to one's level of being in Maya?
You have to be a little careful with this kind of question. It's just like Markandeya Rishi asked the Supreme Lord to see his Maya. And he ended up getting tossed in the water of devastation for trillions of years. And then it was all over, and he just saw it was just a dream, but it seemed real because that's the nature of Maya. It went on for practically unlimited time. It's better to strive for Krishna consciousness. Of course, there are descriptions of the situation in Sattva Gun and Rajagun and Tamagun. And Sattva Gun is more. What's the right word? It's more facilitating or close to the spiritual life. Jayate Jnanam. In Sattva Gun, one can attain spiritual knowledge. Whereas Tamagun is a very deep situation, very deeply covered by the illusion. So, yes, but we shouldn't think that, I'm only a little bit in Maya, so it doesn't matter so much. Be in Krishna consciousness.
Visą laiką stengtis būti Krishna sąmonėje.
Yeah, well, from Srila Prabhupada's instructions, it's very clear that at least for his followers, once a month. All right, shall we finish there? Unless there's... Oh, you want to go on? Another question? All right, yeah. Can go on, I guess. It's actually the first time I've been here in this temple for a few years, although I came to the festival. Do you need to translate that into Lithuanian? Or is it? Yeah. Impersonalists.
Yeah. For those who are discouraged by having relationships.
Yeah. And people become... One reason people become impersonalists is, as Prabhupada describes in that purport, is because they're afraid. Their experience in relationships has made them afraid of having any relationship. We can help them by the way we help anyone. Give them Prabhupada's books, give them Krishna Prasadam. Be nice to them. Srila Prabhupada was generally very strong with impersonalists and could be very angry with them. Because although here Srila Prabhupada speaks of the tendency towards impersonalism impelled by fear, but underlying it all is envy of Krishna. Angry, not always angry, maybe that's not the right, but strong. Srila Prabhupada was very firm, and sometimes very angry also, but he was very firm in preaching to impersonalists. And give them Krishna book. They can learn about the Supreme Person, who, even though he may sometimes disappoint others, that disappointment is also a feature of his love, which never ends. It's not the disappointment he causes. Anyway, this is a very high topic. The disappointment he causes others only impels them to love him more. So the basic Krishna conscious treatment is the same for impersonalists, atheists, Christians, everyone. Give them prasadam, invite them to chant Hare Krishna, give them Prabhupada's books. Alright, so I think we'll finish there, and Hare Krishna, all goes